Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to City Skylines 2 and welcome back to Columbia County. In today's episode, we are finally heading out into Columbia County and we're going to be starting work on a bunch of new industry. That's going to include 2 new farms, not that we need them, but I did kind of want them. That's also going to include a brand new small coal power plant, which, believe it or not, spending money on this is going to help us make some money. And yes, that means that we're also going to be building a coal mine out here, which means we're starting work on a brand new town. Now, we're not going to be building that town today, but we are laying some very basic foundations for it, all thanks to this coal mine. But that's not all. We are also going to be building a cargo train yard, which is going to be sending its trains through that new town. And when I tell you that the new cargo train lines cause some problems for Blackwater, that's underselling it. You're going to have to stay tuned to see exactly what happens there and just how badly things go. It nearly ruined Blackwater. Now, with all of that said and done, and now that we've got through it, let's get to it. So very early on in this series, there was an episode that had the title that was roughly along the lines of spending money to make money, or that was the video thumbnail, or something to that effect. Basically, we spent a bunch of money to then make a bunch of money. Today, we're going to be doing something kind of similar to that idea because I've realized a couple of different things, and those couple of different things have me slightly concerned about the state of Blackwater and Columbia County as a whole. Now, thing number 1 is that our electricity availability is terrible. We are consuming 47.2 megawatts. We are producing 28.8, and therefore we are going to be spending a whole bunch of money on importing electricity. Specifically, $184,000 is being spent on importing electricity. That is a lot of money that could go into just about anything else. And what's particularly interesting about that is that a small coal power plant is $100,000. It can generate 20 megawatts of power. And therefore, if we were to build this thing, we would be producing more electricity than we are consuming. Just about. We're not going to be doing it for long if we build this thing, but we would just about be producing a little bit more electricity. This thing only costs up to $47,500 per month. So in theory, building this should save us a bunch of money. Building a small coal power plant should be cheaper than importing the electricity that we're importing right now. And so you might be wondering why I'm looking to buy 6 map tiles that's going to cost me $235,000 per month. Well, the reason, dear viewer, that I want to do that is because we are still going to be making money at the end of purchasing that map tile. And also because if we go in here and have a look at production, we are currently in a situation where we have a deficit of 24.3 tons of coal every single month. Now, I would bet that some of that is needed for the coal power plants. But what's interesting about these 6 map tiles is the simple fact that there is a good amount of ore underneath these tiles. We've talked about it before. Today is the day we're starting this project. We are finally going to be mining some coal, which I am hoping is going to go towards our existing coal power plant and a new coal power plant that I want to build down here as well. It's also worth mentioning that land fertility out here is pretty good as well. It's good everywhere, but I figure what we can do is go in here, we can get our surfaces, we can bulldoze this existing surface, and we can replace it with 2 actual functioning farms. And while we're on that topic, I want to come into this space and I just want to use Anarchy to put a little bit of a cut in this surface right about here. And I want to do the same thing right about here, just a little node in that spot, and then drag this corner down into that space so that we have a nice bit of space where I can build a new power plant. So 90 degrees, that's perfect. That's basically all we need for everything that I want to build in here. So the way this is going to work is pretty simple. We're going to get ourselves a gravel road. It is going to live right about, say, here. And we can just bring it straight through. We could even go a little bit further over with that, maybe to about this spot. We're going to bring it straight through the middle of this space, right up to, I want to say, right about here. Should be pretty good. We'll turn off our guidelines. We'll go 3 that way. We'll go 3 that way. And at the end of this road, very simply, we are going in here with some coal mining. So it can live, it doesn't really matter where it lives. It can live right about there. We'll do the area for it shortly. Over on this side of things, what I'd like to do is go in here with a couple of farms. So we'll go in with, let's say, some livestock, because I know it is something we're lacking just a little bit. And on the other side, it's very tempting to have these guys facing each other. It's actually very, very tempting to do that because I can line them up so much better. But I think what we'll do is just a little bit closer to this end of things. We will do some cotton farms so that we can have a little bit more of that going on. And then basically, I just need to go into this space and drag out all of these surfaces so that they fill up their respective spaces. All right, so with the basics in here, what I would like to do is come up to this space and just get a little bit of parking, because we do have some medium gravel parking lots, which can go here and here. And then around those, I'm thinking we can do some gravel one-way roads. So we'll swap this guy out to go sort of that way. It's going to loop around the back like this. And then I'm thinking we can probably go ahead and swap these guys around so they're facing the outsides of those one-way roads, which gives us some stones down the middle. I like that as a little touch of detail in that space. And it also means that I can come through here and just adjust this space a little bit so that this is right up against those gravel roads, giving us just a little bit more space for this mining operation. I might even go so far as to bring it up to there and to there. I might even go a little bit further, bringing it up to about there. Might just be that little bit better. So right to about that spot, bring this guy up to about there. We'll do the same thing over on this side. So it's in line with sort of the bottom of the parking lots. I can surround that with trees or details or whatever I want to put in there. Same with the farms. I want to surround those with trees and details and all that good stuff. I'm not super worried about electricity right now, because that's something we are going to sort out by coming into this space with something like a little alleyway road, which is going to come off of right about here. It is going to go to, say, here. We'll bring it across, and on that road, we're going to be building a brand new small coal power plant. So it can go ahead and live, I want to say, I don't know, right about there. Should be totally fine for that coal power plant. In front of it, I figure we'll do more parking. We'll go for a wide parking lot since it fits in here pretty nicely. And around it, we're just going to do some one-way roads because it just helps me fill the space a little bit. So we'll do something like this. I think we'll also do I want to do some little one-way roads kind of going out here? I feel like I could totally do that. I feel like a little one-way road sort of going that way is kind of fun. I think bulldoze and you and I don't know, maybe just having some fun with one-way roads like this as well might be sort of interesting. We'll have that sort of loop around and then connect down like this. That seems messy, is my is my professional opinion on how that turned out. So maybe the better option would be a little something like this, just connecting up to about there, and a little something like this, just connecting up to about there. We'll flip you around into a one-way road. That looks fine. There's probably zero reason to do this, but that looks all right, I guess. I suppose that's a thing that we can do in here, is just to have this weird sort of one-way road thing going around here. And I think what we'll also do, just to keep it kind of weird, is bring that one-way road along the back of the power plant, connect it down to, oh, how do I want to do this? We'll bring it over one more, bring it straight down to that corner. And that means I can put some zoning around this. We can put some warehouses around this. We can do some detailing around this, and it just makes it look like its own little sort of plant, its own little facility, which is what I want it to look like. So sure, as weird as this might be, it's what we're going to go for. I'd also like to go in here and just remove U-turns and unsafe turns and remove this guy. So no one's going to be turning around at this spot. They don't go down there unless they need to go down there. And so now, with some pipes and some cables run underneath the roads, we have everything connected, which means everything is up and running, which is absolutely fantastic news. Now, we are losing money at the moment. That's sort of to be expected. That was going to happen, but that's because our service trade is still going strong. We are still spending a bunch of money to import electricity. That should very quickly, in theory, as we can see, go away. We shouldn't be importing electricity anymore, which is what we're looking for. And even better than that, I'm kind of tempted to go into our services and, well, actually, no, we've increased the budget of this guy already. So never mind. We're not going to be increasing the budget whatsoever. I am very curious, though, about just how much electricity we're producing, which is 57.4 megawatts. So we are producing roughly 10 megawatts more than we need for all of Columbia County right now. So I think what I'm going to do is just come through here and start building some giant pylons that can cross the entirety of the map, which means we can go ahead and start exporting all of that excess power. And would you look at that, we're making $25,000-ish from exporting the excess electricity that we have. That is absolutely perfect and absolutely what I'm looking for. Now, when it comes to this space in here, I'm thinking I do want to get some zoning in here. I do want to get some buildings in here, but I want to be very particular with what I do. So we're going to search in here for buildings. We're going to search for industrial buildings. And I guess what I'm specifically looking for is more along the lines of warehouses. So we'll bring this down a little bit. We'll filter by all lot sizes. And we're looking for stuff like this. This isn't going to have any smokestacks. It's not going to be anything super crazy looking. It is just going to be a nice little warehouse that I think would be perfect next to this this power plant. So that's kind of what I'm thinking can go in this space. I don't love the idea of doing all of this manual placement for these warehouses, but I think it's going to be better if I do place all of this manually. I think it is going to look better. All right, so having messed around with some of these buildings just a little bit, there is something I would really like to do down by the entrance to this space. Now, I'm hoping that I can find the exact prop that I want for this, because I want to build something that's essentially going to look, and it's these guys. I want to build something that kind of looks like a toll booth. So it's kind of, maybe not a toll booth, but a booth, so that it's like, hey, you kind of can't just drive in here. It is a power plant. It probably should be sort of secure. So we're going to build a little booth right about, I want to say, there. And I want to build the smaller one just on the other side. I think that would kind of make sense. So roughly right about there is where I think the other one should go. Those are more or less lined up. It's not perfect. The terrain's a little funky around here, but I'm not super worried about that. We can kind of level everything out with good old trusty Move It if we happen to want to do that, which we do. I think I'll actually go ahead and just level both of these guys to about the same height as well. So everything around here is nice and smooth. This entire stretch of road could also be lowered to that height. Okay, so after a whole bunch of work to get this thing to look exactly the way I wanted it to, which I'm going to be honest with you, it still sort of doesn't. It's missing something and I can't quite put my finger on it. But for the most part, I'm going to say that this new power plant is done. It's got a nice little entranceway down here. We got some cones. We got a bunch of decals to make it look all filthy and whatnot, which I think is something that it probably would be. I've got a bunch of trees as well. We got a little bit of manicured grass in here. I don't know if that makes any sense. And honestly, I think looking at it, that's something that's standing out to me as not necessarily right. So I think that can be swapped out for regular grass. And you might have noticed we're making a bunch of money. We are making 20,000 an hour, over 400,000 per month, which is absolutely fantastic. I don't necessarily know where it's coming from, but I would imagine that the coal production is probably helping a little bit. We're making close to 20 tons a month. We still have a pretty big deficit because we do have 2 coal power plants now, but hopefully this guy can start leveling up just a little bit and producing maybe a little bit more. And speaking of this guy, there's something I want to try in here, and I'm not 100% sure that this is necessarily going to work, but I'm going to do my best to make it work, and we'll just see what happens. What I'm curious about is whether or not I can go through here and build some gravel roads in this space. Obviously, using anarchy, we can do that if we wanted to. That's absolutely an option. But what I'd like to find out is if they look weird, and they sort of don't. I mean, they blend in a little bit, but they don't look too weird, and that's kind of a good thing, because what I'm thinking I want to do here is sort of come around this space as much as I possibly can. I sort of want to line this space with these gravel roads. I want to go to about there, and I want to go to about there. And what I want to try and do is use this as sort of the border of an actual sort of pit for this mine. And I'm not 100% sure that this is going to work, because these walls, these key walls around this might look a little bit weird. But I'm curious to see what happens if we try. So if I go in here with a much smaller brush and a much stronger brush, we can get 127 meters there. We're going to lower this down to 2, and then just start lowering this entire space, and we can get a bit of a look at what this might look like. And immediately, yeah, the concrete walls are, they ain't it. That's really not what I'm looking for, unfortunately. So we're going to have to come up with a different method to make this work. The reason I wanted to use key walls was because it would make it possible, and the reason I wanted to use these gravel roads is because it would make it possible to actually see what we're doing here. Because I can lower this terrain down, and I can use my slope terrain tool to make this all look like a mine with multiple levels. We can absolutely do that. It's just that the second I turn off the contour lines, you are not really going to see the difference in height, which is really unfortunate. So I might just sort of deal with that fact and deal with the concrete around here, as weird as it might look, and use this as a way to actually see what we're digging out. That's kind of my thinking here, and I think that is basically what we're going to have to do. So let me see if I can go through here, and let me see if I can do a little node here. I don't know that this is going to work. I'm hoping that it will. It's going to be tricky. I could go from here and make it work for sure, but I'm not 100% sure that the rest of it's going to work. Let's do some key walls on just one side here. I think that's probably fair enough, and that's pretty steep, but we're going to go for this. And what I'd like to do is get rid of the key wall on that side, and then we'll go through, and we're going to slope terrain. We're going to get a smaller brush again, and we're going to go from here and just try our best to level this all out. And I think that's okay. I think we can make that work. I think that's, with some decals, I think I could blend that all together, and that just gives us something that from a distance is clearly a pit, right? It's not perfect. It is by no means perfect, but I think it's as good as we're gonna get. Because again, if I get rid of all of this, once the contour lines are turned off, I can sort of show you very quickly. If I go and grab this terrain down here and we get a bigger brush and I just sort of sinks that all down, that is sunk down pretty well. If I turn off everything and zoom out, you can't even tell that I just did anything there. All right, so obviously I sort of went back on what I said and decided that I do want another pit in here. I think it just looks a little bit better. When we zoom out, we can see there's a lot more going on here. And I think putting the trees around it, which includes spruce trees, by the way, I've started to put those into some of the builds out here because there's been a couple of comments. We've talked about it before. There are a lot of spruce trees on this map and in this part of the world, so it only makes sense that we start to incorporate them into our builds. But I think for the most part, this area is about as done as it needs to be right now. I don't think we need to go too much further with the mine itself. I think the farms will continue to level up, and obviously we have power generation, which is fantastic news as well. And so since we're making $615,000 per month, I'm gonna buy some more tiles because we are going to need them. This space down here specifically is what I want. We can absolutely afford to do that. And the reason I want those tiles is because I want access to the train line. Now, I also happen to want access to all of this space because I do want to build a little town in here at some point. But the main reason I want access to the train line is because I want to build a cargo train station in here. I've decided it is about time that we do that. And so that is what we're going to be doing. Whether or not this makes sense, whether or not this works, I don't really know, but that's where it's going to live. It's very, very close to the power plant though, which in all honesty has me tempted to bring it all down just a little bit. I think it might be better if it has a little bit more distance between itself and the power plant. So I'm kind of thinking here might just be a better spot. And I've got to say, I think that was absolutely the right choice. Now, what I would like to do is come in here with move it and just grab all of these nodes and lower them to that height. So everything is at exactly the same height. I think that's going to be kind of important. I just want to make sure that I've got absolutely everything to that height, which I 100% do. I'm also thinking that we want to go in here and get the upgrades. So the extra tracks, I think that's going to be important. And I think the storage warehouse is also going to be important, which I want to say can probably go back there. I think that's a pretty good spot for the storage warehouse. I don't know that we're necessarily going to need that, but I think I like the asymmetry that we're going to get from having the storage warehouse. So that's basically why we have the storage warehouse. It's going to give us a nice little bit of asymmetry for this entire build, which is great. I'm even tempted to slightly raise this up now that I think about it, because if I did that, I could put it on a platform, have vehicles sort of drive up to it, and then have these trains come in on a bridge from the jump. That might be kind of interesting, but I think the best thing to do here is just going to be somehow, some way, get some double train track that's going to fit kind of in the middle of all of this, because these guys are not evenly spaced apart, which is very, very frustrating, but it is what it is. We can work with that. If I bring some tracks down here and I bring some tracks down here and I sort of go across like this, if there is a midpoint on this guy, which annoyingly there isn't, but if I can find one, which annoyingly I can't, but if I could, which is roughly there, I can bring this straight down. I can get rid of these guys. I can hopefully upgrade this to be a double train track, and then I can hopefully just make this work. And you know, I think this kind of works. It's maybe a little bit low over the water, but it's not super duper low, right? I think we can kind of make that work. Now, what I would like to do is just somehow, some way, bring this terrain up a little bit. I want to bring it up to about this height around the train tracks. So just a little something like this should be fine. I want to slope the terrain from here up to that height because I think that's going to look a little bit better. So we're just going to sort of do that on this side, something like that. Over on this side, I'd like to, again, somehow, some way, bring this up to roughly that same height, maybe not quite as high on this side. We're probably going to have to adjust this farm as well to make it make sense, because it kind of doesn't make sense having this on a hill, but again, not super concerned about that. What I would like to do is just slope up to all of this as well. We'll just have this go right up like that on either side, so it kind of looks a little bit interesting, and we're going to hit it with a softened terrain brush. A very slight softened terrain brush, though. We'll go for a very weak one and just gradually go around here. This is doing absolutely nothing. Let's go for a slightly stronger one. and just hit this with a bit of smoothing so that we kind of have some elevation. We have the terrain kind of coming up to meet the tracks a little bit. The only other thing we need to do now is run this track from here right down to meet with the rest of the track. So we'll go to about this spot, and then we need to curve this whole thing together in a way that's going to be sort of satisfying. So we're going to go from here, that's 146 meters. We're going to go to there, and we're going to go from here, that is 153, and we're going to go 156. And technically, that is done. Technically, that's working. That is a connection to the cargo train terminal. That went so much easier than I thought it was going to. That's actually kind of surprising. I'm not gonna lie. That worked out so much easier than I realistically thought it was going to. So much so that I don't know if I like that. I'm kind of tempted to maybe bring it through here, because this is kind of where I want my town, and this is where I want to put, you know, a road that has trains on it, because that would look kind of cool. So maybe what I do is I go in here, get rid of that surface, because that entire thing is being repurposed as a town. That's a given. That is happening. This entire space is somehow, some way going to be a town. Now, if I look in at my roads, we do have some options. Obviously, we have the good old 2-lane road with train track. This is the one that we have used up in Blackwater. And I think what I'm going to do, or what I'm tempted to do, I'm kind of tempted to swap out this section of track with it, but that probably wouldn't make too much sense. What I think I'm going to do is lay down some basic infrastructure for what will become its own little town in here. So let me get something that is going to run parallel to this train track. I know that doesn't make the most... Well, do I want it to run parallel? Because if I run it parallel to the train track, it's going to be at the same angle as Blackwater itself. Maybe we should put this at a 45-degree angle to the train track, and that would make a bit more sense. I think that's exactly what we're going to do. Just because it's going to give me a town that has a totally different orientation to Blackwater. I think that's going to be for the best. So we'll do 56 right there. We'll do this, which is 45 degrees. Take out these guys, and then we're going to swap out... Well, we're not going to swap out Pearl Lane. We're just going to bring it through here for the time being. And that's essentially going to be the angle that this little town we build, whenever we get around to building it, that's the angle that it's going to be on. And what I'd like to do is go in here and swap out this road with something like that, because I think that's kind of interesting. It would be nice if I could get the tracks on the other side, but we'll not worry too much about it. That's going to be the main street that runs through this little town. I have no idea how that's going to make sense. I have no idea how that's going to work. But yeah, that's going to be the main street that runs through here. I'm also wondering, now that I look at this, could I do the little French train station, which isn't loading properly, unfortunately. Maybe the little, well, no, that's definitely too big. Something kind of small, a little tiny train station in here, a little medium train station even, or, well, probably not the small one, but this one, the little medium train station. I could potentially put it at the end of this road, is my thinking. And I'm noticing sort of how I could do that. If I was to get this road and bring it over like this, I can then put that station right here. And that lines up so perfectly that I'm so tempted to do that. I think what we'll do is bring this back a little bit, put a cut in it right there. And that is basically where this town's train station is going to live. It's going to be along Pine Street, I guess, is where it's going to be. That's totally fine by me. We'll put it, say, there. We can bring some double train track down off of this station and run it straight into all of this. We can turn off a bunch of the snapping stuff because it's getting a little bit weird. It is going to make the tracks do some weird stuff at the end here. I'm not really super concerned about that. That's just sort of the reality of messing around with the train tracks the way that I am. But I want this to go through here. That's going to be a little stop for the trains here. And then off the end of this, I'm kind of thinking that we get a 45-degree bend that comes back over in this direction and reconnects to all of this track. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, though. I'm kind of tempted to say that we don't do that, and maybe this is just a little section where a passenger train comes through and stops into this town. That might be a better bet. That might be the better move. So I think that's exactly what we're going to do. I would like to surround this train station just a little bit with some buildings or whatever. So we'll do this just to get around this thing. All right, so I suppose now is probably a good time to say that we're not going to be building an entire new town today. This is just going to be the bare bones of what I want to put together. I'm just getting the very basic infrastructure in here because in the next episode, we can start to put together an actual little town down here. I would like to detail the space around this cargo train terminal. I think that's going to be important. And I'm also very tempted to make some changes to this space just to get rid of some of these crossings here. So I think I'm going to put a cut right here. And I think I'm going to put, well, maybe we don't need another cut in here. I think what we can do is take out these sections of road, and then we can go in here and just lower that terrain a little bit. So if I grab this height right here and lower that to say 4, I can go through and just lower this right down. Now, is that going to be low enough? I want to say it probably will be. So I'm going to lower this right down. We do have some pipes running underneath this area, which is totally fine, but we're going to just excavate this entire thing is going to be dug out. We can go ahead and get rid of these pipes right here. And what I'd like to do is bring this road down, which is going to be a little bit steep. It's definitely going to be a little bit steep, which isn't really ideal, but it's going to be fine. It's going to be 6.3 right there. And then what I'd like to do is go in here and just get some kind of little curve that's going to come around here really nicely. So bring this down to here and let's see, does this connect together in a way that is satisfying? I want it to be at ground level. That's kind of important to me. And I think I want it to go to there. So it's a 7% gradient. I think that's okay. I think we can work with a 7% gradient, and I think that looks all right. And I want to go in here with some retaining walls because I think retaining walls might actually just look kind of decent here. And I think they do. I think they look okay. We might need to use move it to just be a little bit cheeky with this bit right here to sort of raise that up ever so slightly. And I'm tempted to say that we raise that up until those retaining walls are nice and level, which is about there. And I'm sort of okay with that. I don't mind a little bit of a bump in the train tracks. We could even go so far as to sort of raise up these sections on the sides here. I don't know if that really works, but it's probably fine, right? That's probably all right. We can go in and get rid of that support again, and that looks fine to me. I don't really mind that. And because I'm curious, let's set up a cargo train line. We have 2 options for where it can go. It can go out that way. It can go out that way. So we'll set up one for each platform. This one is going to go out to Eglin, which is totally fine by me. And then it's going to come back. This one is going to go from here all the way out to Tamworth. And then it's going to come back. And now what are they doing? So they're both going down this way. Now that makes sense, but you know what would be a lot more interesting? If they didn't do that. It'd be a lot more interesting, I think, if they went that way, which apparently they don't want to do right now. That's very interesting. Can I get it to go through this station? Is that? Oh, that is an option. That is absolutely an option. There's what I'm looking for. That is perfect. And I can sort of get it to go back as well, which I love so much. I really quite a big fan of that going back there. I would like to somehow, some way get this guy to sort of loop back through this way. And then do I need to add a little section back here as well to get it to sort of go? Yeah, there we go. So it is going to have to stop down here for any trains sort of coming through, but I think it's worth it. That's what I want. Cargo trains going through this little town. That's 100% a thing that I absolutely want to happen right there. That's really important to me. And then for this little line down here, for this passenger train line, it's going to go into the town. So it's going to go to there. basically, and it comes back out and sort of continues on its way. I don't want it doing that. I want it going that way. So that's also an important thing that it does. And then on the way through, it's exactly the same story. It goes to, it's not going to be doing that. It's going to go to there. And then we're going to drag that stop into here. So it stops at the station and sort of continues on its way. And I think that's going to look amazing. Obviously, there's no one that's going to be wanting to get on a train right here, right now, but that's going to be good. That is what we're looking for. We're going to have cargo trains going through this town. We are going to have passenger trains coming into and stopping in this town. It's going to look amazing once it has a bunch of buildings around it. And once again, there we go. We have a new industrial development out here, which I think is looking kind of decent. I'm quite happy with this. We have a couple of actual industrial buildings in here, which are just giving us a bit more industrial zoning, which is always a good thing. We got some surfaces in here, giving us a little bit more detail. I didn't bother putting any decals down this time, just because I figured if they break again, it's going to be an absolute nightmare to look at this. But I'm happy about this. I'm really, really happy about this. What I'm not necessarily happy about, though, is what appears to be going on with Blackwater in the distance. Now, I looked at this and I was really concerned about it because we're obviously having problems with people waiting for hearses and medical care. But then I realized that the problem is basically tied to this street that we have here, as well as the fact that these trains have to wait to come back through here. Basically, this cargo train is blocking that entire section of road, which is slowing down so much of the city right now. Now, what I'm hoping is that once that train clears the station, the cargo train can maybe move. No, the cargo train cannot move into the station right now. Basically, we're at a bit of a standstill until that until that cargo train can move out of the way. Now, what I have done, it's blocking this road as well, just by the way. What I have done is make sure that both cargo route 1 and cargo route number 2 only have one train. There are a couple of route 2 trains out at the moment, but it does only have one train because I decreased it from 3. We just have so many trains coming and going that it's kind of a problem, and the entirety of Blackwater has come to a standstill as a bit of a result. So here's hoping that, you know, things can kind of figure themselves out a little bit. Unfortunately, we're going to be waiting for this train to leave, which is problematic because we're waiting for this train to get in here, which is equally problematic. We might be in a lot of trouble. I might genuinely just have to go in here and delete some vehicles. I think that's kind of where we're at. So I'm just going to delete you. No, that did not do what I thought it was going to do. Okay. Delete the train. All right. That's what we're doing here. We're deleting some trains. We're going to delete this train as well. We're going to delete, I don't even know what this one's for. I'm just deleting you as well. So we'll delete all of those. And that hasn't really improved things because this train is still very much stuck here. Okay. So after a serious amount of messing about, I have solved the problem. The solution in this case was to just delete a bunch of the trains and let the cargo trains get through. And then that means that my passenger trains are admittedly blocking the road right now, but in the not too distant future, that shouldn't be a problem because they will filter through where the cargo trains would not filter through. So we should being the main word right there, we should be okay. What's great though is that we do have cargo trains coming through this space. We have them going over these roads. It's going to go through this little train station right here and out to the rest of the region. Obviously, a little bit slow on this road, but just imagine once we get a bunch of buildings in here, this is going to look so good. I'm so excited to see how this space just eventually turns out. Oh, so it turns out we have this problem again. We are going to have this problem in perpetuity, apparently, because these trains will need to come back to the rail yard every now and then for maintenance. So we're gonna need another solution to this problem. I can't keep coming up here and deleting trains, and every time this road gets blocked and these trains tail back, it causes problems across all of Blackwater. We're still feeling a lot of those problems. There's a lot of traffic that just gets stuck. This power plant down here has been waiting forever for a garbage truck to come by because the garbage trucks keep getting blocked by the trains. Well, I say there's nothing I can do. There is something I can do, but the something that I can do is a fairly major, well, it's not a major project. It would mean that I have to get rid of all of these houses, unfortunately, but I could basically just put a second section of track along Forest Street, and I genuinely think that might solve most of the problems that we're having right now, because it would mean trains can go up and down Forest Street, which is honestly probably the only thing I can do. I think that is the solution to this problem, because otherwise I'm gonna have to run some train lines sort of up and around or sort of down this way, which I'm not against doing, but I think it would look a bit silly to have the train lines kind of go down and around everything right now. So I think the solution is gonna have to be messing about with Forest Street. Now, I'm okay with going in here and bulldozing these buildings and using this section of Forest Street as a test, because it just so happens that I do have a section of road which has two-way train tracks. It is 4 units wide. It will look like this. And honestly, I kind of think that's what we got to do. So several game crashes later, this is apparently working. Now, occasionally trains will stop on sections of this road and block traffic, but they do eventually move on, and that is the whole point in doing this. So I'm not particularly worried about the fact that the trains will occasionally stop on sections of this road, because they get moving again, and that's what I need them to do. Now, what I'd also like to do is take out the traffic lights from that intersection, and I want to make sure that we don't have traffic lights anywhere else that doesn't really urgently need them. So here probably doesn't need them, here probably doesn't need them, and the rest of those intersections are probably fine keeping their traffic lights. I suppose with everything said and done, all of the trouble out of the way, we can at least zoom out and take a look at what we've got down here with LeBrian, which is going to be the name that we're going for this new town when we get around to building it. We have a coal power plant, we have the freight yard, we have the Columbia County Coal Company, which is all set up and ready to go. So this is good. We have a rail connection that's going to run between this place and Blackwater itself, which is always going to be a good thing. But I have a question for you, or more of a request. Obviously, LeBrian is going to have a couple of different districts within it. It's going to have some different neighborhoods and things like that. They're all going to need names. So down in the comments below, let me know some names for different districts and just regions and parts of LeBrian. Keep in mind that Blackwater is named after a town in Red Dead Redemption 2, and all of the districts, well, a lot of the districts like St. Denis, Valentine, Strawberry, and Rhodes are named after other towns in Red Dead Redemption 2. We didn't necessarily do that for everything in Blackwater, but we did that for a few of the residential districts. And then LeBrian, I suppose, for inspiration or not, is named after, well, it's named after a typo that I made in my UK region pack video, but it's also the La comes from LaGrange in Kentucky. So I don't know, you can come up with something. You're going to be much more creative with little district names than I'm going to be. So let me know in the comments below what we can call different parts of LeBrian. But I think with everything said and done and out of the way, all the troubles managed. Like I said, I think we can go ahead and leave it there for today. In the next episode, we're going to be jumping in and starting work on LeBrian. I'm very excited for that. Hopefully you are as well. If you've enjoyed this video, I would appreciate you leaving a like on it. It does apparently help with the YouTube algorithm these days. And if you're new around here, do feel free to subscribe. This being the first video of 2025, let's start it off well and strong and good. And it's also worth mentioning that my upload schedule is changing a little bit with this video going forward. We're doing 2 days on, 1 day off. So there will be a video today and tomorrow, and then none the next day. And then there'll be another 2 days of videos, none the day after, and so on and so forth. So it'll be 2 on, 1 off in perpetuity going forward. That's how we're going to be doing things. With all that said, thank you so much for watching, everybody. It has been an absolute pleasure as always. And as always, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.